Hey, what is going on? What is going on? Today, I was looking forward to since last week's live video is our top 5 market predictions for 2022. Now, I've never done a market predictions before, but I figured it's the beginning of the year, lots of information going on from lots of different sources, which I would recommend listening to them all. Now, granted, I would also, while listening to those, understand that all of us have our own perspectives that we bring to the table, different experiences, different markets, different understanding of those markets, and viewing the data through different lenses. So, when you listen to those individuals on YouTube or the TV, understand the purpose that they are giving that information to you with regards to. Now, I'm born and raised here in Fort Collins, Colorado. So my perspective is pretty much limited to Northern Colorado. I love data. I have a degree in accounting, and I've been doing real estate since 2009. We did a fix and flip, but really been doing it full time since about 2010, 2011, and an active broker here in Fort Collins in Northern Colorado since 2013, which is nuts to say, 9 years ago. Now, last week we did a market update for the month of December, which was information for just the month of December, which one thing that we'll get into here shortly is the median price for the month of December was $565,000, whereas the median price for the year of 2021 was $535,000. So when we start talking about information, we are talking about the data from 2021 and the data for 2022 as the year in its aggregate, not just individual months. So jumping to it, thank you for joining me. If you are joining me live, and if you're watching this watching this in the future recorded, it is January 11th, 2022, and we are making some predictions of the market and its behaviors for the year of 2022. All righty. So number one, population increases. Fort Collins has continually been listed as one of the best places to live. So one of the things that we've seen historically is our population numbers increasing, pretty dramatically, anywhere from about 1.5% to 2% annually, or about 2,000 to 4,000 people a year net inflow. That doesn't take into consideration all of the thousands of people who have moved out or all of the thousands of people who've moved in, but net inflow each year has been about 1.5% to 2%. Now, one of the biggest things we've talked about in previous cost of living videos, which I'm excited about doing a cost of living video here in the near future, is Fort Collins is actually generally a relatively affordable place to live when you take into consideration insurance, property taxes, gas, restaurants, healthcare. Well, healthcare is kind of national, but we generally do a pretty good job, except on the housing front. Our housing is what drives our cost of living here in Northern Colorado. And as we've seen our prices increase with the rest of the nation, double digits, National Association of Realtors had the appreciation for 2021 around 19%. Fort Collins was right around there as far as what numbers depending on what numbers you look at, whether it's 22%, December 2021 versus December of 2020, or the year of 2021 versus 2020 was closer to about 17.5%. So our cost of living has definitely increased, which ultimately will affect people's desire to live here. With a home ownership rate of around 65% nationally, the desire is still there to own a home. It is still one of the best ways to build an individual's net worth and wealth over time. So if a person can't afford to buy, there's going to be some decrease of desire to live in a location. Whereas Fort Collins might decrease. My prediction will be, instead of 1.5% increase in population, we'll see about 1%. So about maybe 1,700 to 2,000 people moving here, net inflow over the year of 2022. Now, politically, some major kind of barriers to our housing affordability and maybe crunch on supply are some of the following. A U+2 rule on rentals. So there are only 3 people that are allowed to live in a home unrelated. Tiny homes, kind of like everywhere, it's a funky little deal, and people are still trying to figure out how to deal with tiny houses. As long as it's on a foundation and meets certain criteria, you can build in Fort Collins, but generally speaking, you're going to see houses no smaller than 700, 800 square feet and pretty much a lot higher. So tiny homes are not anything that's going on here in Fort Collins or really even Larimer County. Well, there's some areas, mobile home parks, that you will see tiny house communities, but right now that's definitely something politically that is in discussion in lots of different places. ADUs, additional dwelling units. I actually got introduced to ADUs when I was in the Northwest, going through some educational programs, and met with a buddy who had just built an ADU on his house from scratch and was able to turn that into an income producing property and kind of hedge some of these supply issues. Well, Fort Collins is, it's pretty difficult to create and build those ADUs. There are areas, specifically downtown, denser areas, where a lot of people will build a garage with an ADU on top. But there is a relatively significant process to go through to get those approved. And finally, we have height restrictions on our downtown buildings, which is actually really pretty cool. We have a very low skyline of buildings. We have a few 6, 7, 8-story buildings, but really not many, which allows everybody to see the mountains. When people move to Fort Collins, Colorado, when people move, they want to see the mountains. So not having such a high skyline of buildings allows people from all over the place to see those mountains. Now, I don't think anything's going to happen to U+2, anything necessarily with tiny houses. I do think that bigger, taller, larger buildings will be built, but it'll kind of be on the outskirts of downtown, with it being more kind of on the perimeter edges of the eastern side and not so much on the west. I think there will still be significant barriers for that, specifically neighborhood development review meetings and neighborhoods putting up a huge fight about that. Where I do see a potential change is clearer paths for ADUs. Our mayor, Jenny Arndt, suggested, which I loved the comment that she made. She suggested that we will not legislate ourselves into housing affordability. We need to remove barriers, decrease fees, allow developers to build more. And ADUs might be one of those that we see as an opportunity to increase our supply and housing units and potentially decrease some of the constraint that we have. So not necessarily anything U+2, tiny homes, don't think so. Larger buildings, there will be developers that do redevelop on the outskirts, periphery areas, and go taller. But definitely, I think ADUs will be in kind of the spotlight where we could see some potential political change. Now, inventory. That's kind of been the hot topic, hot spot for people, and why there's been such, between inventory being such a low supply, interest rates being historically low, demand being very high, remote work, inventory has been one of the largest issues with housing affordability over the last 12 to 18 months. We've seen only about a half a month of supply continuously over the last 6 months or so. Now, Fort Collins hasn't ever seen in the last 5 years a healthy 6-month supply market, but we have seen a month and a half to 2 months worth of supply on the market, which allows people to not necessarily have to compete against 6, 7, 18 offers like I just submitted on a house in Loveland on, which was nuts. It was priced relatively low. It was intended to build and get all of those multiple offers, but we weren't seeing so much of that in 2019 and even at the beginning of 2020 before the pandemic hit. But we have seen it over the last 18 months very significantly. I do see with a reduced demand due to potentially interest rates and more sellers wanting to leverage the market, a potential for that inventory to pop up closer to 1 month to maybe even a month and a half worth of supply by the end of the year. Inventory for the next 3 to 4 months, while interest rates are still relatively low, will be very low due to the extreme demand, and still not a ton of sellers hitting the market. I've got a conversation going on with a few sellers that are suggesting that we'll be putting their house on the market here early spring, but they are holding for those spring family buyers that are waiting for their kids to get out of school and then moving them. We could also see interest rates increase up to and near 4. Now, actually on CNBC, it suggested that just as of yesterday, interest rates were quoted at 3.62%, which is nuts. Even as of a week ago, it was about 3.3%. But I think it'll kind of level off right around 3.2 to 3.5% for the next 3 to 4 months. Increasing from there, the Fed funds rates are suggested or potentially suggested to increase about 3 to 4 times this year, which will indirectly impact mortgage rates. I do think by the end of the year, we will be between 3.8% and 4% for those interest rates, which on the housing update for December of 2021, we discussed how those interest rates could immediately impact one's availability to afford those homes, specifically with median price points of around $550,000. So interest rates are a very, very hot topic right now. They have seen dramatic increases over the last week. I do think they will kind of level off, but by the end of the year, I do believe we'll be between 3.8 and 4% for interest rates. And finally, our housing prices. As discussed at the beginning of this video, National Association of Realtors for the United States was about 19% for the year of 2021. And if you're looking at Fort Collins for December of 2022 versus 2021 versus 2020, it was about 22% appreciation. But if you're looking for the average median price for Fort Collins over the year of 2021 versus 2020, you're seeing closer to about 17.5%. Still, that is nuts. Historically in Fort Collins, we've seen about a 5.5% appreciation year over year on average since the 70s. I do think we'll get back closer to that 5.5%, but with demand being so strong right now and interest rates increasing and people wanting to get in and to lock those interest rates, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months are still going to see dramatic demand with low inventory levels, which is going to push us higher than that 5.5% interest rate, probably closer to 7%. So we could see the median price going from about $535,000 to $572,000 by the end of 2022. So all of that being said, I don't necessarily see a market crash happening. You never know. Stock market's been pretty funky. Interest rates are increasing pretty quickly, and different things are having a impact on the market. Lumber tariffs for new construction, supply chain issues, labor shortages on new construction. So new construction is going to have higher prices, or they're going to have higher costs, I should say, which they will push those onto the buyers and drive those prices higher. So new construction is going to continue to increase, which will then push existing home sales prices to increase. And so long as there isn't a paradigm shift like we had kind of in 2020 to this remote work, I still think that there are going to be people and individuals moving from all across the country who can afford in specific areas. A lot of the San Francisco, New York, Boston, higher priced areas, getting those remote jobs that are still able to develop or produce those 6-figure incomes can move to places like Fort Collins, Boise, Idaho, or there's a hidden gem, Knoxville, Tennessee, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Spartanburg, South Carolina. They will be able to keep those incomes but afford those houses. So unless there's something that shifts that people no longer can remote work, or something COVID what would this be, part 4 comes along and puts a huge damper on the market, I don't necessarily see there being a huge shift in the housing market, maybe just a little bit cooler as we move into the second half of 2022 with less multiple offer situations while still having some when the houses are priced very affordably or intended to build multiple offer situations. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this 2022 market predictions, my first ever predictions for the Fort Collins market. We will continue to do market monthly updates, develop lots of different information for you guys upcoming these next few videos with the sections of Fort Collins, as well as questions asked new builders, new developments in Fort Collins, and really a very exciting 2022 production schedule. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this has really brought some value to you guys, your family, your friends, if they're considering moving to Northern Colorado. I am a licensed realtor here in the state of Colorado. So if you're considering moving, buying, or investing, or selling, give me a call or a text. I appreciate you guys watching. All of that information is down below in the show notes. I'm going to take a look to see if we've got any questions. It does not look like we do. So until next time, guys, appreciate you guys watching. My name is Patrick Sukup with Sukup Real Estate Services here in Fort Collins. Take care. Looks like somebody wants to ask a quick question, so I'll hang on. No, I'm good. I'm here. I'll stay on for a quick second. What you got? Well, so I wonder how the live videos are doing for you guys. It's been a blast. I upgraded some of my equipment, got a new camera, upgraded my internet, and it was really pretty cool to see my first live feed versus my last two. And so hopefully you guys have enjoyed the kind of upgraded quality. But the question is, how are the natural disasters in the area, tornadoes and such? Honestly, some of our natural disasters aren't necessarily natural. Now, I've got a really good buddy who is very into climate stuff, and he believes that wildfires are going to kind of be more of the norm than the outliers, which is a little bit terrifying. You guys probably saw the Marshall Fire in Boulder, a couple weeks ago, which was terrifying, especially in the month of January, when really we shouldn't be having any fires with all the snow. But no tornadoes, no earthquakes, no hurricanes, but we have had a relatively decent amount of wildfires, which definitely sucks. So a lot of those are started by human touch, but they do kind of spread quickly because of how dry it has been. So something that hopefully we can figure out and kind of hedge those. How does that affect insurance costs? Insurance hasn't been too bad. The biggest insurance cost, great question, is due to our a lot of hail. We do have hail, but one thing that we've done to kind of offset that is we've changed from a class 3 roof, class 3 shingle to a class 4 shingle, which is supposed to have more a bounce effect and supposed to be able to last through different hailstorms up to a certain size. So hopefully we don't have to replace roofs as often, but really we don't have a lot of flooding. Our biggest cost is the replacement of roofs, which does and has increased our insurance costs, but nothing crazy. What about farmland? And farmland, Fort Collins. It was funny. I had a client that that moved here, was looking for all of the cows, the horses, the sheep. We used to be sheep farmers here, beet farmers and sheep farmers here in Fort Collins, but we are definitely not very much a farming community anymore. My sister lives 2.5 hours east in a farming community, Haxton, Colorado, produces a lot of corn. I go to Corn Fest every single year around September, and it is a blast. But we do have a lot of farming surrounding us in Wellington, Loveland, east of now Timnath and Severance. But Fort Collins isn't necessarily a huge farming community by any means, but we do have our roots in farming here in Fort Collins. And I think that is the only questions we have. Hopefully those 2 answers helped you guys. But if you do have other questions, feel free to ask those in the comments below. I will be checking those and answering those as we go. So I appreciate you guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. See you later.